I came home and found my wife crying, curled up on the floor, unable to say a word. I asked her what happened, but she just shook her head silent. A few minutes later, my son appeared and said, "Dad, Mom was already like this when I got here. I don't know what happened." When I checked the security camera to find the truth, I was too shocked to speak at what appeared on the screen. Before I tell you what I saw in that camera comment below, where are you watching this from, and what time is it right now? Let's see how far this story travels. I had just pulled into the driveway of our home on Grove Avenue when I heard it through the half-open window, a sound that made my blood run cold. It was crying, yes, but not the kind you hear every day. This was different, broken, choked, like someone trying desperately not to scream, while their whole world was being torn apart from the inside. I killed the engine and sat there for maybe 3 seconds, my hand frozen on the keys. 38 years of marriage teaches you things. It teaches you the difference between sadness and devastation, between tears and terror. This was terror. I grabbed my briefcase and rushed to the front door. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys. The October evening air in Richmond felt suddenly colder than it should have been. When I finally pushed the door open, the sound hit me full force. There she was, my Diane, sitting on the edge of our old sofa, the one we'd bought when we first moved to Museum District 20 years ago. But she looked nothing like the woman I'd kissed goodbye that morning. She was folded in on herself, arms wrapped tight around her middle, like she was trying to hold something together that was threatening to spill out. Her face had gone chalk white. Not pale. White. The kind of white you see in hospital corridors. Her eyes stared at nothing, completely lost, like she'd been dropped into a foreign country where she didn't speak the language. When she saw me standing in the doorway, something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe. Or was it fear? She tried to stand up, her legs buckled. She managed only to look at me, her lips moving, shaping words that refused to come out. No sound, just silence and that terrible hollow look in her eyes. I dropped my briefcase. It hit the hardwood floor with a crack that echoed through the house. "Diane?" I crossed the room in 4 strides and dropped to my knees in front of her. Her body was trembling, not shaking, trembling, like a leaf in a storm. "Honey, what happened?" "What's wrong?" She opened her mouth. A small sound came out. Not words, just a broken little noise that made my throat tighten. I took her hands. They were ice cold despite the warmth of the house. I squeezed them gently, trying to bring her back from wherever she'd gone. "Diane, look at me. It's Russell. I'm here. You're safe. Just tell me what happened." Before she could respond, I heard footsteps. Quick. Coming from the hallway that led to the kitchen. My son appeared in the doorway. Garrett stood there, slightly out of breath, his hair mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. He was holding his cell phone. His shirt was untucked on one side. He looked at me with an expression that was supposed to be concern, but there was something off about it. Too much. Too performed. Like he was acting in a play and hitting his marks a little too precisely. "Dad," he said, walking toward us with careful steps. "Thank God you're home." I didn't let go of Diane's hands. "What's going on, Garrett? What happened to your mother?" He stopped a few feet away, his eyes darting between me and Diane. "I don't know. I really don't. When I got here about an hour ago, she was already like this. She was in the kitchen and then she just... I don't know. She started crying. I tried to ask her what was wrong, but she won't talk to me." The words came out smooth. Too smooth. Like he'd practiced them. "What were you doing here?" I asked. "I just stopped by to check on you guys. See how Mom was doing? I've been worried about her lately." He shifted his weight. "But honestly, Dad, I don't understand what's happening. Maybe we should call her doctor." I looked back at Diane. She was staring at Garrett now, and in her eyes I saw something that made my stomach drop. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something that looked almost like dread. I asked her again, my voice softer this time. "Diane, sweetheart, can you tell me what happened? And anything at all?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she made no sound. Her throat worked like she was choking on words that wouldn't come up. I asked her a 3rd time. "Please, honey, just try. I'm right here." Still nothing, just that terrible silent crying. Garrett moved closer, reaching out like he wanted to help. But Diane flinched. It was subtle. A tiny movement. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I'd been married to this woman for 38 years. I knew every gesture, every expression, every breath. She'd flinched away from our son. I looked up at Garrett, really looked at him this time. He was still wearing that concerned expression, but now I noticed something else. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Not directly. Every time my gaze landed on his face, his eyes would slide away to Diane, to the floor, to the window. Anywhere but me. And when he spoke again, his voice had that same quality I'd noticed before. Rehearsed, memorized. Like he was reciting lines he'd prepared ahead of time. Should I call an ambulance, Dad? I mean, she seems really out of it. I pulled a blanket from the back of the sofa and wrapped it around Diane's shoulders. She was still shaking. I held her close, feeling the rapid flutter of her heartbeat against my chest. No, I said quietly. Not yet. Let's just give her a minute. I had shared 38 years with this woman. Illnesses, debts, raising children, burying parents, laughter on good days, silence on the hard ones. We had weathered everything together. Built a life together in this house on Grove Avenue in this quiet corner of Richmond's Museum District. But I had never, not once in all those years, seen her like this. Garrett stood there, shifting from foot to foot, checking his phone, glancing at the door, like he wanted to leave but didn't quite dare to. His breathing was still slightly elevated. There was something in his manner, something that didn't fit. A son worried about his mother should be asking more questions, should be more frantic, more confused. But Garrett seemed more watchful, like he was waiting to see what would happen next. That detail, so small, so easy to miss. That detail was the first thing that made me feel something didn't fit. Something was wrong in my house. Something more than my wife's breakdown. And somehow standing there in our living room with Diane trembling in my arms and my son watching us with those sliding, evasive eyes, I felt the first cold whisper of a truth I wasn't ready to face. Not yet, but soon. I helped Diane settle back into the sofa cushions. She was still shaking. I reached for the gray blanket on the armrest, the one her mother had crocheted years ago. As I pulled it up around her shoulders, her sleeve caught on my watch and slid back. That's when I saw it. A bruise. Dark purple, almost black, at the center, fading to yellow-green at the edges. It wrapped around her left wrist like a handprint. 4 distinct marks on the underside where fingers had gripped. One larger mark on top where a thumb had pressed down. Hard. Diane, my voice came out hoarse. Your wrist. She looked down. Her whole body went rigid. She tried to pull the sleeve back, but her hands shook too badly. A small sound escaped her throat. Not quite a word. More like a whimper. Footsteps. Fast. Before I could turn, Garrett was already there, leaning over the sofa, eyes locked on that bruise. Oh, that! Too quick. Too ready. She probably bumped into something, Dad. You know how Mom is lately. She trips a lot, gets confused about where furniture is. The words tumbled out smooth, practiced. I turned to look at him. Trips a lot. Yeah. Just last week, she walked into the kitchen counter. Right, Mom. He looked at Diane with forced reassurance, but his jaw was tight. His eyes too wide. Diane's crying got harder, not louder, harder. Her chest heaved with silent sobs. I looked back at that bruise, at the perfect outline of fingers. You don't get a bruise like that from furniture. You get it from being grabbed, from being held down. Garrett, I kept my voice level. Did you touch her? The question hung in the air. For half a second, Garrett froze. His face went blank. Then he switched to shock, to hurt. He brought his hand to his chest. What, Dad? How could you ask me that I would never hurt Mom? How can you think that? I'm asking if you touched her. I helped her sit down when I found her upset, that's it. I can't believe you'd accuse me of this. He looked at Diane, then back. You're both stressed. Mom's not well. Maybe she doesn't remember how she got hurt. I didn't argue, but I watched his eyes darting to that bruise, watched him shift his weight, watched his hands clench and unclench. Diane was crying harder, face buried in her hands. Garrett moved to comfort her, reaching out. She flinched. Sharp. Visible. He pulled back. See, she's not herself. We should call someone. A doctor. I think you should go home, Garrett. Quietly, but it landed like a hammer. His mouth opened. Closed. Dad, I don't think I should leave. What if Mom needs something? I'll take care of your mother. But go home, Garrett. He stood there, something moving behind his eyes. Calculation, measuring risks. I really think I should stay, just in case, to help. His insistence felt wrong, too persistent, like he needed to monitor what happened next. Your mother needs rest, not a crowd, please. Pause, then he nodded slowly. Okay, if that's what you want. He grabbed his phone, shoved it in his pocket. Call me if anything changes. I can be back in 10 minutes. He walked to the door, stopped, turned. "Dad, I hope you know I'd never hurt Mom. I love both of you." I didn't answer. He left. The door clicked shut. I sat there in the sudden quiet, holding my wife's trembling hand, staring at that bruise, at the clear imprint of violence on her fragile skin. Something inside me began to crack, not break, not yet, but crack. A slow fracture running through everything I thought I knew about my son, about my family, about the man I'd raised. Something inside me was breaking slowly, like a fault line splitting open deep underground, silent, invisible from the surface, but absolutely catastrophically real. I helped Diane to our bedroom. Her legs barely supported her. Each step was slow, careful. I guided her to the bed, pulled back the covers. She curled onto her side, immediately arms wrapped around herself. In the bathroom, I found the anxiety medication her doctor had prescribed months ago, 1 pill, a glass of water. She took them without protest, hands trembling. "Try to rest," I whispered, smoothing her hair. "I'm right here." She caught my hand, held it tight. Her eyes searched my face for safety, for answers I didn't have yet. "You're safe now." Her eyes closed. After a few minutes, her breathing slowed. The medicine was working. I waited until I was sure she wouldn't wake. Then I made my way down the hallway to the security room. After break-ins in Museum District years ago, I'd installed cameras covering the front door, back door, and kitchen. Basic setup, but it had given us peace of mind. Until tonight, I turned on the monitor. Blue-white glow filled the small space. I pulled up today's recordings, starting with the kitchen camera. 1 o'clock. Diane making tea. 2 o'clock. Washing dishes. 2:15, 2:16, 2:17, 2:18. Diane at the sink. Then nothing. The screen froze. The timestamp kept counting. 2:19, 2:20, 2:30. But the image stayed stuck. Diane's back to the camera, hands in the sink. 2:40, 2:50. Suddenly, the image jumped back to life. Diane was on the floor, on her knees, her body bent forward, one arm cradling her wrist against her chest. And Garrett, walking quickly toward the door, his hand went to his hair, smoothing it. His shoulders rose with a deep breath. He straightened his shirt. Then he disappeared. Diane slowly pushed herself up, stood there swaying, still holding her wrist. She looked down at it, then walked unsteadily to the counter. 32 minutes, gone, erased, deliberately deleted. I sat back. My heart pounded in my ears. I wanted to rewind, to check every detail, but exhaustion hit like a physical weight. My eyes burned, the adrenaline draining away, leaving only fatigue. I needed to think clearly, but I was too tired. I turned off the monitor. Back in bed, I lay fully dressed next to Diane. She was sleeping deeply. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept replaying those frozen seconds, that blank screen, 32 minutes of nothing. What happened? I must have dozed, because the next thing I knew, Diane was sitting up gasping. The clock read 3:14 a.m. "Diane?" I sat up. "Oh, what's wrong?" Her chest heaved, eyes wide, pupils huge in darkness, breathing too fast. I reached for her hand. "You're safe. It's just me." She stared, trying to remember where she was. Then her face crumpled. "Russell," broken whisper. "I'm here. Don't trust him." The words tumbled out. "He forced me. He pushed me. He screamed at me. I didn't want to sign. I didn't want to—" Knock, knock, knock. We froze. 3 firm knocks from the front door. 3 in the morning. Garrett's voice muffled. "Dad, is everything okay in there?" Diane's hand clamped down on mine. Her whole body rigid. Terror flooded her face. She shook her head frantically, hand pressed over her mouth. "He can't hear us," I whispered. "He can't get in." Another knock. "Dad, I just want to make sure Mom's all right." Why was he here at 3 in the morning? "Everything's fine, Garrett," I called out, voice steady. "Your mother's sleeping? Go home." Silence. Footsteps. Car door. Engine. Taillights disappeared down Grove Avenue. I turned to Diane. "What did you mean, sign what?" She shook her head. The moment of lucidity was gone. Tears streaming, but no more words. I pulled her close. "No one is going to touch you while I'm alive. I promise." She clung to me. I made a decision then. I would pretend I knew nothing. Act normal around Garrett. Wait and watch and gather evidence. Because confronting him now would only put Diane in more danger. But even as I held my wife in the darkness, even as exhaustion pulled me under, something nagged at my mind. That night I'd been too tired to check everything. I'd looked at the main camera. But had I missed something, another angle I hadn't considered? I didn't know yet that the answer I was looking for had been recording all along. in a camera so old, so forgotten I hadn't even thought to check it. At 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, I woke with a jolt. Diane was still sleeping, breathing deep from the medication. Gray dawn filtered through curtains. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Something had been nagging me since last night. Something I'd missed. The cameras. I'd checked the main kitchen camera. But there was something else. Something at the edge of my memory. The backup camera. Years ago, I'd installed an extra camera covering the back hallway to the kitchen. Cheap. Terrible angle. Worse quality. We'd never looked at its footage. I'd forgotten it existed. Until now. I slid out of bed carefully. Diane needed rest. I pulled on yesterday's clothes and went to the security room. The monitor glowed blue. I pulled up the camera list. Camera 3, back hallway. The red light blinked steadily. Recording. It had been recording all along. I clicked the file. Yesterday's date. Scrolled to 2:15 p.m. The image was grainy, the angle awkward, looking down the hallway toward the kitchen door. You could see part of the kitchen through the doorway. Enough. 2:18 p.m. Diane at the sink, washing dishes, her back to the camera. Then Garrett entered the frame. He moved with purpose, reached the kitchen door and pushed it closed, deliberately, cutting off the view from the rest of the house. Through the doorway I could see him approach Diane. His mouth moved. Diane turned, shook her head. Her hands came up, palms out. No. Garrett moved closer, more insistent. Diane shook her head harder, backed up. Her hands were still up, pleading. Garrett's hand shot out. He grabbed her wrist, the left one, the bruised one. Diane tried to pull away, her mouth opened wide, screaming maybe, but there was no audio. Garrett yanked her forward, hard. Diane stumbled. He pulled her toward the table. She tried to resist grabbing the counter. He jerked her wrist again. She lost her grip. Then he pushed her. Violent. Diane's body hit the table edge. Her hand flew to her side, her face contorted. Then she was falling, onto the tile floor, knees first, then hands. She stayed there, bent over, arm cradling her wrist, shaking. Garrett stood over her, looking down, just watching. Then he moved, grabbed papers from the table. A pen. He crouched beside her, forced the papers in front of her face. His mouth moved rapidly, demanding. His hand still gripped her injured wrist. Diane shook her head. Garrett's grip tightened. She winced, curled from the pain. He shoved the pen into her other hand, wrapped his fingers around hers, pressed down, forcing her to sign. When he let go, Diane slumped forward. The pen fell. She brought both arms around herself, rocking. Garrett stood, looked at the papers, checked them, folded them, put them in his back pocket. Then he looked down at his mother one more time, and his face changed, jaw relaxed, shoulders dropped. Deep breath. He ran his hand through his hair, smoothing it, straightened his shirt, rolled his neck. Then his face crumpled, shoulders shook, hands to his face, and he started to cry. But I could see it. The way he stood, breathing steady even as shoulders shook, the way he peeked through his fingers at Diane, checking if she was watching. Fake. Performed. A show. He wiped his eyes, composed himself, walked out leaving Diane alone on the floor. 2:50 p.m. Diane stayed there for a long moment, then slowly, painfully pushed herself up, to her knees, to her feet, swayed, caught the counter, stood there staring at her wrist. I clicked back, watched it again. Every second of those 32 minutes. Watched it a third time, because some part of me still couldn't believe it. Couldn't accept that the boy I'd held 38 years ago could do this, could hurt his own mother, could be this cruel, this calculating. But the evidence was there, undeniable. My hands shook on the mouse. I felt cold, ice in my veins. I saved the file, backed it up. Mechanical movements, because if I stopped to think, to feel, I would break. When I was done, I turned off the monitor. The room went dark. I sat there. Then my legs gave out. I slid down the wall, ended up on the floor, knees drawn up. Then I cried, silently, the way Diane had, because some pain is too big for sound, some betrayals go too deep. The boy I'd raised didn't exist anymore, maybe never existed, maybe I'd been too blind to see. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually the tears stopped, the numbness set in. I stood, turned the monitor back on, checked the file saved properly. It had. I turned everything off, left the room, walked down the hallway like a ghost. Something had died inside me in that dark room. The father I'd been, the man who believed his son was good. That man was gone. But something else had been born, something cold, something hard, something that knew exactly what needed to be done, a determination that would not bend, would not break, would not stop until justice was served. Even if that justice destroyed my family, even if it destroyed me. I made breakfast that morning. At 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning, I cracked eggs into a pan and watched the edges curl white, and I told myself I was a man who still knew how to function, who still knew how to perform. Garrett had left at 4. The house was quiet, and I had work to do. I carried 2 plates to our bedroom. Diane was sitting up, hands folded on the blanket, like she was waiting for permission to exist. I set the food down carefully. Then I closed the door, locked it, sat beside her on the edge of the bed, and spoke so low even I could barely hear myself. "Those papers," I said, "the ones he made you sign. What were they, sweetheart?" Her breath caught, her fingers tightened, but she answered. "It started months ago," she whispered. "Small things at first. Authorization forms, bank letters. He said it was to help, to make things easier. I believed him. I waited. But yesterday was different." Her voice cracked. "Yesterday was everything. A full power of attorney, the house, the savings, your pension, all of it. $700,000. Everything we had built in 38 years. $485,000 in the house on Grove Avenue. $127,000 in savings. $89,500 in my retirement account. Every dollar, every memory, every year of work, gone, signed away on a kitchen floor while our son stood over her with a grip tight enough to bruise bone. He said you were getting old," she continued, and the shame in her voice made my chest ache. "That you wouldn't be able to make decisions soon, that I had to sign to protect you." I closed my eyes. "He said if I told you you'd be angry with me, that you'd leave me alone. And I was so scared, Russell. I was so scared. I felt something break inside me all over again. Not the sharp crack from the video. This was softer, deeper. The kind of break that doesn't make noise but changes everything underneath. I'll handle it," I said quietly. "Whatever happens, you don't face him alone anymore. Don't answer him. Don't sign anything. Do you understand?" She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in months. Not hope, not yet, but something close, something trying. "Will you—" Her voice trembled. "Will you report him—" I held her gaze. "I'll do what's right," I said, "even if it breaks my soul." Her hand found mine, squeezed, tight, her fingers cold but steady. "Okay," she whispered. That single word, that one brave broken word, it was the first time she'd trusted me in months, and I swore to myself right then that I would not let her down. After she fell asleep, I copied the video onto a single USB drive and slid it deep into the lining of my jacket. My insurance, my proof, my weapon. But I knew I couldn't do this alone. I needed help, legal help, and I needed it now. I called my brother at 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. "Leonard, I need you in Richmond. Bring a lawyer you trust. Our son has crossed a line he can't come back from." Silence. Then quietly, "What happened?" "I'll explain when you get here. We met at the downtown Richmond library. 3rd floor. Private room with a locked door. I couldn't risk Garrett seeing us." Leonard arrived 90 minutes later with a woman in her early 40s. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. "This is attorney Valerie Hutchinson," Leonard said. "She specializes in elder abuse cases." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm. "Tell me everything, Mr. Brennan." So I did. I told her about the bruise, the 32 minutes deleted, the backup camera. I pulled the USB from my jacket and plugged it into her laptop. Leonard covered his mouth halfway through the video. When Diane hit the floor, he turned away. When Garrett forced the pen into our hand, Leonard's shoulders shook. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "I can't believe it." Valerie didn't flinch. She watched it all, took notes, replayed 2 sections. When it ended, she looked at me with absolute calm. "This is extremely serious, Mr. Brennan. We have a clear criminal case." She ticked off charges on her fingers. Domestic violence against an elderly person, coercion, forgery, conspiracy to commit asset stripping. In Virginia, elder abuse is prosecuted aggressively. He's looking at 5 to 10 years in state prison. 5 to 10 years, my son. But I thought of Diane on that floor. I nodded. Valerie opened her legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. 4 steps. First, change the locks tomorrow morning, early, before he shows up. Second, freeze every bank account. I'll file the paperwork tonight. It'll be done by 9 a.m. Third, we set a trap. Get him on record admitting what he did. Audio evidence to support the video. Fourth, we call the police with full evidence, video, audio, witnesses. Then we press charges. She looked up. Before you leave, make 2 more copies of that video. Hide them in completely separate locations. If Garrett finds one, you still have backups. This is your most critical evidence. I nodded, took the USB, slipped it back into my jacket. That night, I came home. Garrett had called 3 times. I didn't answer. I created 2 additional copies on my old desktop. The first I wrapped in plastic and buried in the backyard beneath the rose bush Diane planted when we moved in. The second I slid inside a hollowed book under our mattress. The original stayed in my jacket lining, always with me. I called a locksmith before bed, scheduled him for 7 a.m. sharp, before Garrett usually came by. Tomorrow we'd change the locks. Tonight I'd sleep with one eye open. Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. sharp, a locksmith's truck pulled quietly up to 2847 Grove Avenue. An hour before Garrett usually showed up. The locksmith was professional, asked no questions. I told him it was a family security issue. He nodded and got to work. 90 minutes later, every lock in the house had been replaced. Front door, deadbolt, high grade. Back door, same. Garage door, done. He handed me 4 new keys. 2 for Diane and me, 1 for Leonard, 1 backup hidden in the garden shed, none for Garrett. I paid cash, thanked him, watched him drive away. At 10:30, I drove to First National Bank on West Broad Street. Diane stayed home, safe behind the new locks. Ms. Fairbanks greeted me at her desk. Mid-50s, kind eyes. She'd handled our accounts for years. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "what can I do for you?" I kept my voice low, steady. "I need to freeze all transactions on our accounts, effective immediately. Any activity requires 2 signatures, mine and my wife's, both present." Her smile faded. She leaned forward. "Is everything all right?" "No," I said quietly. "We're dealing with an elder abuse situation. I need password changes, alerts on any unusual activity, and I need documentation of any recent attempts to access our accounts." She typed quickly, then her face went serious. "Mr. Brennan, I need to tell you something. Yesterday afternoon, someone tried to schedule an appointment using your wife's information. We flagged it as suspicious and declined." My chest tightened. "Do you know who—" She hesitated, then nodded. "The caller ID showed your son's number. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, breathed, opened them. "Can you give me records of every time he's tried to access our accounts?" She pulled them up, printed them. 3 attempts in the past 2 weeks. All flagged, all denied. "Your system's caught it," I said. "Thank you." She placed the papers in an envelope. "I've frozen everything, Mr. Brennan. Changed all passwords. Set maximum alerts. No one touches these accounts without both of you present with photo ID." I shook her hand, took the envelope, left. When I got home, Diane was standing in the kitchen, staring at the new lock on the front door. Her fingers traced the shiny metal. "It's real," she whispered. "Isn't it? He can't just walk in anymore?" "No," I said. "He can't." She turned to me, her eyes wet but steady. "For the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe in my own house." I pulled her close, held her. For a long moment, we just stood there in the quiet safety of new locks and frozen accounts. But peace didn't last. That night, around 11:30, we were getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed in the dark. I picked it up and felt my blood freeze. 12 missed calls, all from Garrett, and 1 text message. "Dad, we need to talk. I'm coming over, now." The security app lit up my screen. Motion detected, front door. I tapped it open. On the small display, a figure in a dark hoodie crouched at our front door, fumbling with a ring of keys. Even in the grainy night vision, I recognized the way he moved. It was Garrett. I didn't wake Diane. She'd taken a sedative an hour earlier, finally sleeping, finally peaceful. I watched silently from our bedroom phone in hand. He tried the first key. Metal scraped against metal. The lock didn't turn. He tried again, harder this time, frustrated. 3rd attempt. He rattled the handle. Nothing. I watched him step back, stare at the door like it had betrayed him. Then he walked around the side of the house, checked the windows, all locked. He moved to the back door. I switched camera views. Watched him try the same old keys. Same result. The new deadbolt, held firm. Then the garage, another failure. He stood in the driveway for a long moment, looking up at the window of the spare room, the room where I kept the security system, where he thought the evidence was stored. Then he did something I didn't expect. He punched the brick wall, hard. I heard the impact through the audio, heard him cry out. saw him shake his hand, cradling it. He walked back to the front door, stood directly in front of the camera, and spoke. "This is my inheritance." His voice was raw, shaking. "You can't do this to me, Dad. This house, this money, it's mine. I earned it. I waited for it. You can't just lock me out like I'm some stranger." He kicked the planter beside the steps. Dirt scattered across the concrete. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. Then louder, "You'll regret this." He stormed off toward his car. Tires screeched as he drove away. I saved the footage immediately. Every angle. Every second. Then I called Valerie even though it was 12:15 in the morning. "Valerie, we have more evidence. Attempted burglary. All recorded." Her voice was sharp, alert. "Perfect. That adds another charge. Save that footage, Mr. Brennan. Multiple copies." "Already done." I hung up, sat in the dark, looked over at Diane, still sleeping, her face calm for the first time in months. Garrett's list of crimes was growing with every desperate act. But tomorrow I'd give him one last chance. Not for him. For me. Because I needed to hear him say it. I needed to know if there was anything left of the son I used to know. Thursday morning at 9, I sat by the window with my phone in my hand. My fingers trembled slightly. I took a deep breath. Dialed. Garrett answered on the second ring. "Garrett," I said, my voice deliberately tired, weak. "Son, we need to talk." Silence. Then cautiously, "About what?" "About all of this. I'm exhausted, Garrett. Your mother's sick. I don't have the strength to fight with you anymore." A pause. Then his voice shifted. Careful, almost victorious. "I'm glad you're finally seeing reason, Dad. Come by this afternoon, 4 o'clock, just you and me. No shouting, no drama. Let's talk like adults." "Will Mom be there?" "No, she's too upset. This time just father and son." He agreed quickly, too quickly. "All right, Dad. I'll be there at 4. I hung up, sat for a moment, then drove to the library. Valerie and Leonard were already waiting. Private room, 3rd floor, same as before. Valerie laid out 2 professional audio recorders on the table. Small, digital, high quality. "These aren't phones," she said. "They're designed for exactly this. Clear audio. Legal evidence." She handed me the first one. "Hide this on the bookshelf in your living room, behind a thick book. Aim it toward where he'll sit." Then the second. "This one goes under the couch cushion, where he'll be sitting. It'll pick up everything." Leonard tested both, played them back, crystal clear. "Virginia is a one-party consent state," Valerie continued. "You're part of the conversation. You have every legal right to record it." She leaned forward, her voice firm. "Here's what you need to get him to say. Make him tell you why he did it. Make him admit he used physical force. Most important, make him say he doesn't regret it, that he'd do it again." She tapped the table. "Don't accuse him directly. Let him brag. Arrogance is his weakness. He'll hang himself." I nodded, my throat tight. Leonard gripped my shoulder. "Officers Delaney and Vasquez will be in your backyard, hidden. The moment you text Valerie the word now, they come in. Not before. You control the timing." "What if he gets violent?" I asked. "Then you text immediately," Valerie said. "But I don't think he will. He thinks he's won. He'll want to gloat." We practiced questions, scenarios. Leonard played Garrett. I stumbled over my words twice. "How can I do this?" I whispered. "How can I make my own son confess?" Leonard's voice was gentle. "You're not making him confess, Russell. You're giving him rope. He'll hang himself." At 2 o'clock, Leonard took Diane to his house. She hugged me at the door. "Please be careful," she said. "I will. This ends today." By 3:45, I was alone in the living room. Recorders on. Officers hidden in the backyard. USB drive in my jacket pocket. Phone in my hand, ready to text. I sat in the armchair, waited. My phone buzzed. "I'm outside, Dad." I took one last deep breath, said a silent prayer, and opened the door. He walked in like he owned the place. Confident stride, head high, eyes scanning the living room with the casual authority of someone who believed this house. This money, everything already belonged to him. He didn't knock, didn't hesitate, just walked straight past me into the space where he'd grown up. "Where's Mom?" he asked, glancing toward the hallway. "At Leonard's," I said quietly. "Resting. This is between you and me." He nodded slowly, looked almost pleased. Then he walked to the couch, the exact spot I'd placed the recorder beneath the cushion, and sat down. Leaned back, stretched one arm across the backrest, crossed his legs, made himself comfortable like he was settling into his own throne. He smiled. "I'm glad you're finally seeing reason, Dad. This whole thing has gone way too far. It didn't have to be like this. I sat down across from him in the armchair, kept my voice calm, kept my hands from shaking. Tell me what you want, Garrett. He tilted his head, studied me for a moment like he was deciding how much to reveal. It's simple, really. I want you to destroy that recording if it even exists, and I want us to sign the papers Mom was supposed to sign. Clean. Legal. No more drama. No more games. And in return, he said smoothly, I take care of both of you. Doctors, bills, maintenance, everything. You and Mom can live in peace without worrying about a single thing. I held his gaze, or without any control left. His smile tightened, just slightly, a crack in the mask. That's not fair, Dad. Then tell me what was fair about what happened to your mother. The smile vanished. His posture shifted, shoulders squared, expression hardened. Eyes went cold in a way I'd never seen before, not in the boy I raised, not in the man I thought I knew. Dad, he said slowly, leaning forward now, elbows on his knees, you need to understand something. You're old. Time isn't kind to people your age. Your memory isn't what it was. Your health is declining. Mom's even worse. You both forget things, make mistakes. You're vulnerable. So someone needs to take control before it's too late. Before you lose everything to some nursing home, or to predators who will bleed you dry, or worse. That sounds more like a threat than a promise. He didn't blink. Call it whatever you want, Dad, but you know I can make it happen. I have lawyers, I have medical documentation proving you and Mom aren't capable of managing your own affairs anymore. It's already in motion. The room felt colder, my chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I also know I can put you in prison. For a second silence. Then he laughed. Short, harsh, bitter, dismissive. You don't have the guts to do that, Dad. I'm your son. I looked him straight in the eye. You're wrong, Garrett. I only need one more piece of evidence. His smirk faltered, just for a second. What evidence? I said quietly, admitting what you did. He stared at me, silent, processing. Then he laughed, low, bitter, dismissive. I'm not admitting anything because I didn't do anything wrong. Everything I did was for this family. For you, for Mom, to protect what you've built. I leaned forward in my chair, kept my voice steady. You pushed your mother. You grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises shaped like your fingers. You forced her to sign documents she didn't understand while she was on the floor crying, begging you to stop. Something snapped in him. He stood up suddenly, the movement sharp, violent. He took 3 steps toward me and loomed over my chair, hands clenched into fists at his sides. I did what I had to do. His voice rose, sharp, angry, no more pretense. You two can't manage things anymore, Dad. You forget appointments. You make mistakes. Someone had to take control before you lost everything, before it was too late. I stayed seated, didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked up at him calmly. Control isn't taken through violence, Garrett. He turned away, ran both hands through his hair, paced 3 steps, then turned back. And when he looked at me again, his eyes were completely different, cold, empty, like staring into the face of a stranger I'd never met before. Not the boy I'd raised, not the man I thought I knew. You don't understand how the real world works, Dad. His voice was quieter now, colder, more dangerous. Out there, nobody cares about your feelings or your dignity or your pride. The weak always lose, and I'm not willing to lose. The words hit me like a physical blow, like a knife sliding between my ribs. And I'm weak? I asked softly. He didn't even hesitate. You and Mom, both of you. You're old now. You're slow. Your bodies are failing. Your minds aren't what they were. You can't protect what you have anymore. So I'm protecting it for you. I stood up slowly, carefully, met his gaze without blinking. By stealing from us, his jaw tightened, eyes flashed. By saving it, he said through his teeth. That house on Grove Avenue is worth $500,000, Dad. Your savings account, your pension, together over $700,000. Do you have any idea how many people would take advantage of you? How many scammers call old people like you every single day? How many fake charities, fake grandchildren, emergencies, fake IRS agents? So you decided to become the scammer instead of protecting us from them. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the veins in his neck. His voice dropped low, threatening. I'm your son, Dad. That money, that house, all of it, it's going to be mine eventually anyway when you die. I'm just making sure it happens sooner. Making sure it doesn't get wasted on nursing homes or medical bills or some con artist who tricks you into signing it away. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. I had to ask. I had to hear him say it. If I hadn't seen that recording, if your mother hadn't told me what you did, how far would you have gone, Garrett? How far would you have taken this? He looked me dead in the eye, and there was nothing there. No remorse, no regret, no guilt, no love, nothing. As far as necessary. The silence that followed was absolute, complete, suffocating. I stood up straight, took a breath. This conversation is over. He laughed, twisted, bitter, disbelieving. What are you going to do? Dad turning your own son call the police on me? I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the small USB drive, held it up. Everything was recorded, Garrett. Every word you just said. His face went white, completely white. But that's illegal. More illegal than what you did. More illegal than assaulting your own mother. He looked around the room wildly, panicked, eyes darting from the bookshelf to the couch beneath him, then back to me. Understanding dawned. You set me up. I gave you a chance to tell the truth. You chose to confess your crimes instead. He bolted toward the front door. I pulled out my phone, typed one word, now, sent it to Valerie. The back door burst open. Officers Delaney and Vasquez moved fast, blocked his path before he reached the handle. Garrett Brennan. Officer Delaney said, voice, sharp and official. You're under arrest for domestic violence against an elderly person, coercion, forgery, conspiracy to commit asset stripping, and attempted burglary. Officer Vasquez pulled out handcuffs. Garrett spun around, looked at me, screamed. Dad, you can't do this to me. I'm your son. I stood still, tears streaming down my face. But my voice didn't shake. You started this when you put your hands on your mother, when you decided she was too weak to deserve respect. The officers cuffed his wrists behind his back. Read him his Miranda rights. The words I'd heard 1,000 times on television, but never thought I'd hear spoken to my own child. Garrett thrashed, yelled. This is my inheritance. You're stealing from me. That house is mine. That money is mine. Sir, you need to calm down, Officer Delaney said firmly. They led him toward the door. He was still screaming as they walked him out. You'll regret this, old man. You'll have nothing left. Nothing. Sirens wailed. The police car backed out of the driveway on Grove Avenue, drove away. The door closed. I stood alone in the living room, silent. Then my legs gave out. I collapsed into the chair. My whole body shook uncontrollably. I cried, not from anger, from loss. My phone rang. Valerie. Mr. Brennan, I just got your message. Is it done? It's done, I said hoarsely. You did the right thing. It's over now. But sitting there in that empty living room, hearing the echo of my son's hatred still ringing in my ears, I knew it wasn't over. The hardest part, learning how to live with what I'd done, was only just beginning. That night the house was silent in a way it had never been before. Not peaceful, just empty. The first night after the arrest, neither of us could sleep. Diane lay beside me in Leonard's guest room, staring at the ceiling. I could hear her breathing, shallow, uneven. Was he scared, do you think? She whispered in the dark. Probably, I said. Good. Then after a long silence, I'm a terrible mother, aren't I? I found her hand in the darkness, held it tight. You're a mother who survived. The next morning we drove home from Leonard's. The house felt strangely empty. No threat anymore, but no son either. Diane sat on the old couch, cried all day. I held her, didn't say anything, just stayed. Leonard came by that afternoon, brought groceries, casseroles. You did the right thing, brother, he said quietly. The hardest choice, but the right one. I nodded, but it didn't feel right. It just felt like pain. The first week the phone rang, an automated voice. You have a collect call from Richmond City Jail from Dad. Press 1 to accept. I looked at Diane. She shook her head. I pressed 1 anyway. Dad. Garrett's voice was small, weak. How's Mom? Is she okay? She's alive, Garrett. That alone says a lot. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just... You meant it with every choice, until you got caught. I hung up. Week 2, therapy. Diane started seeing Dr. Melissa Hartman. Her office was on Carey Street, warm, filled with soft light and plants. The first session, Diane sat clutching her purse, staring at the floor. Mrs. Brennan, Dr. Hartman said gently. She was in her mid-40s, calm voice, kind eyes. Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy. Diane just cried, couldn't speak. Dr. Hartman handed her tissues, waited patiently. After 10 minutes, Diane whispered, He's my son. I brought him into this world. What you experienced has a name, Mrs. Brennan. It's called elder abuse. And I need you to know something very important. It is not your fault. Diane looked up for the first time. But I'm his mother. I must have done something wrong raising him. Dr. Hartman leaned forward slightly. You are his mother, and that makes what he did worse, not less. He violated the most sacred trust there is, the trust between parent and child. When the session ended, Diane walked out, face still swollen, but lighter somehow. Legal preparation began. Valerie called. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, the preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. You'll both need to testify. Diane gripped my hand. I don't think I can face him. You won't have to look directly at him, Valerie said. You can look at me, or the judge, but your voice matters. She explained further. The investigation uncovered more. Garrett had been working with a corrupt bank employee who'd since been suspended. 3 attempted unauthorized withdrawals in the past month alone. This isn't just domestic violence anymore. It's organized financial fraud. 3rd therapy session. Diane talked more. What do you want from all of this, Diane? Dr. Hartman asked. Diane thought for a long time. I want to be heard. For so long I felt invisible even in my own home. I want to tell the truth, even if it hurts. Dr. Hartman smiled. Then that's what we'll prepare you for. 1 week before the hearing, an envelope arrived from Garrett's attorney. He was pleading not guilty, claiming Diane was mentally compromised, and I'd manipulated her for revenge. Diane read the letter. Her hands shook. Then she looked at me with something new in her eyes. Something strong. Let him try. This time I won't be silent. The morning of the trial arrived under a gray, heavy Richmond sky, as though even the heavens hesitated to witness what was coming. Russell and Diane dressed carefully in formal clothes, their hands clasped tightly as Leonard drove them in silence to the Richmond Circuit Court at 400 North 9th Street. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters called out questions. Neighbors who had heard the rumors gathered. Russell shielded Diane from the attention, saying firmly, My wife needs privacy, not publicity. Inside the courtroom felt severe, high ceilings, stark lighting, hard benches. Garrett sat at the defense table in an orange prison jumpsuit, thinner than before, staring at his hands without looking at his parents. Judge Whitfield entered a stern but fair presence in his mid-50s. Everyone rose and then sat as he read the charges, each one falling like a hammer. Domestic violence against an elderly person, coercion under duress, forgery of legal documents, conspiracy to commit asset stripping, and attempted burglary. When asked for his plea, Garrett stood and said quietly, Not guilty, prompting murmurs across the room. The prosecutor called Diane to the stand. Russell accompanied her to the witness box until she placed her hand on the Bible, swore the oath, and sat down. Her voice trembled as she described the afternoon of October 14th. Garrett had come to the house insisting she sign important papers. She refused, wanting to wait for Russell. Her son grew angry, grabbed her wrist, insulted her, and pushed her hard enough that she fell to the floor. Then he forced her to sign, pressing the pen into her fingers, while she cried and begged him to stop. He claimed he was protecting her, but to her it felt like possession, not protection. During cross-examination, the defense attorney asked about her medication for anxiety and depression, suggesting it might distort her memory. Diane answered firmly that no medication could invent the pain, fear, or bruise she carried. She held up her wrist, the fading mark visible, and the courtroom fell silent. Russell testified next. He recounted coming home to find Diane crying and bruised. When reviewing the security cameras, he discovered 32 minutes had been deleted from the main system. Remembering an old backup camera, he checked it and found footage poor quality, but clear enough showing Garrett assaulting his mother. His voice cracked as he said it felt as though the son he had raised had died replaced by a stranger wearing his face. The defense attorney pressed him, accusing him of manipulating Garrett into a recorded confession. Russell replied that he had simply given his son a chance to tell the truth, and Garrett chose instead to confess and threaten more harm. The prosecution then moved to present the video evidence. Though the defense objected, Judge Whitfield overruled him, citing proper authentication. The lights dimmed and the footage played. Diane washing dishes. Garrett entering and deliberately closing the door, grabbing her wrist, pushing her, and forcing the pen into her hand. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. Garrett stared at the floor, unable to look. Next, the audio recording echoed through the room, Garrett's voice saying, "The weak always lose. and as far as necessary. The gravity of his words hung over everyone. Judge Whitfield then asked Garrett if he wished to speak in his own defense. Shaking, Garrett said he never meant to hurt his mother that badly, and claimed he had been trying to secure their future. The judge's voice turned icy as he questioned the logic of violence, theft, and terror against his own mother. He announced a recess of 2 days before sentencing and struck the gavel. As they left the courtroom, Diane leaned on Russell's shoulder and whispered, "Is it almost over?" Russell answered softly that it was almost done. But the hardest moment remained hearing the verdict that would decide their son's fate. The hallway outside felt strangely quiet, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Russell held Diane's hand more tightly than before, both of them carrying a mixture of sorrow and relief. Whatever sentence awaited Garrett, they knew they had told the truth, and that truth finally spoken aloud carried its own weight. 2 days later, we returned for the verdict. As Garrett stood, I noticed his hands trembling. For the first time since this began, I saw something in his eyes that looked like fear. The courtroom was crowded. Diane and I sat in the front row, Leonard beside us. Garrett stood at the defense table, shoulders hunched, face pale. No confidence left. Judge Whitfield entered. Everyone rose. The silence stretched endlessly. "I have reviewed all evidence." He began looking directly at Garrett. "What you did was not simply a crime against your mother. It was a crime against the foundation of family trust and human dignity. You violated the woman who brought you into this world, not out of desperation, but out of greed and cold entitlement." Garrett gripped the table, knuckles white. "The defendant will please rise." Garrett stood shakily. "On the charge of domestic violence against an elderly person under Virginia Code, Section 18-2, 57-2, I find you guilty." Diane squeezed my hand. "On the charge of coercion and duress, guilty. On the charge of forgery with intent to defraud, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to strip assets from a vulnerable adult, guilty. On the charge of attempted burglary, guilty." Each word fell like a hammer. Garrett flinched after every count. His head dropped lower. Judge Whitfield continued, "I sentence you to 7 years in the Virginia Department of Corrections, with possibility of parole after 5 years contingent upon genuine rehabilitation and remorse." Garrett nearly collapsed, gripped the table to stay upright. "All documents signed under coercion are declared null and void. All assets, including the property at 2847 Grove Avenue, all bank accounts, and retirement funds are permanently restored to Mr. and Mrs. Brennan. You are prohibited from any contact with the victims during your sentence and for 5 years after release." He lifted the gavel. The sound echoed like fate being sealed. "This court is adjourned." Diane collapsed into my arms crying, not from sadness, from relief. Leonard gripped my shoulder. "Justice has been served." Valerie came over. "Your courage made this possible." Garrett turned, looked at us, lips moving. "Dad, Mom." I shook my head, turned away. "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "I'm really sorry, please." Officers moved in, handcuffed him. "Dad, please. I didn't mean it. I'm your son, Dad." I didn't turn around. The door closed. Garrett disappeared. Diane looked at me, trembling. "Did we really—" "Yes, it's done." "Will I ever stop feeling like a terrible mother?" I held her. "I don't know, but you're a mother who chose to survive. That's what matters." Outside, Richmond's afternoon sun broke through clouds. Reporters rushed forward, but Leonard and Valerie shielded us. Diane stopped on the courthouse steps, looked up, breathed deeply. "For the first time in so long, I don't feel afraid anymore." I squeezed her hand. "Neither do I." We walked down the steps toward a new life. As we drove home through Richmond's streets, past the old houses and autumn trees of the museum district, I knew our house would feel different. Not because he was gone, but because we had chosen truth over blood, justice over silence. The hardest battle wasn't winning in court. It was learning to live with what we'd lost and what we'd saved. 3 months had passed since the day in court. This morning, the house at 2847 Grove Avenue smelled of fresh coffee and morning light. I woke early, watched Diane sleep beside me. She no longer had nightmares. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. I made coffee in the kitchen, the same kitchen where it all began, but different now. Diane woke and walked into the garden, watered the roses where I'd once buried a USB drive. Sometimes she hummed old songs while tending the flowers, small signs of healing. But some days she stood at the window, eyes distant. I knew who she was thinking about, didn't need to ask. I'd just walk over, rest my hand on her shoulder, say nothing. There are wounds that carry a child's name. Those wounds never fully heal. Therapy continued every week. Her last session with Dr. Hartman. You're making remarkable progress, Diane. You're finding your voice again. Diane could speak about Garrett now without trembling. Called him by his name instead of my son. 3 months after the verdict, the first letter arrived. Handwritten envelope. Stamped from Virginia Department of Corrections. I held it, hesitated, opened it. The handwriting was messy. Different from before. Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I see it now. Who I became. Prison gives me time to think. Too much time. Every night, I see Mom's face when I grabbed her wrist. I hear her crying. I can't forget. I'm sorry. I know that means nothing now, but I'm sorry. Gee. I handed it to Diane. Do you want to read it? She looked at the envelope for a long time, then shook her head. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not now. I understood. Okay. I put the letter in a drawer. Didn't throw it away, but didn't answer either. That evening we sat in the garden with tea. The silence between us was comfortable now. Not heavy with fear, light with understanding. Diane set down her cup, looked at me with eyes that had seen too much, but still held warmth. Russell, she said softly, do you ever regret it? What you did to him? I looked down at my tea, watched the steam rise and disappear into the air. The question hung between us, waiting. I took a long breath. The answer came from somewhere deeper than words, from the part of my soul that had made the hardest choice of my life. Every day, I finally said. I regret it every single day. She waited, and I'd do it again, every single day. How can both be true? Because love isn't allowing everything, Diane. Sometimes to save someone you love, you have to save them even from themselves, even if they hate you for it, even if it breaks your heart. She was quiet, thinking. I continued, he's still our son. That will never change. But he's also a man who made choices, violent choices, cruel choices, and choices have consequences. Do you think he understands that now in prison? Maybe. The letter sounded different, but understanding doesn't erase what was done. The peaceful silence returned. I'm proud of us, Russell, for not being silent, for choosing truth. So am I. We held hands, watched the sun set through Richmond's trees. If this story reached you, I want you to know this. Elder abuse happens more often than you think. It happens in quiet houses on streets like Grove Avenue, behind closed doors, in families that look perfect from the outside. It happens when adult children see parents not as people, but as assets. When I love you becomes you owe me. When protection becomes control, and control becomes violence. According to the National Council on Aging, approximately 1 in 10 Americans aged 60 and older have experienced some form of elder abuse. But only 1 in 24 cases are reported. That means millions suffer in silence. If you see it, speak up. If you experience it, speak out. Call Adult Protective Services, call the police, tell someone you trust. Silence protects the abuser, not the victim. It's never too late to say enough. Never too late to choose truth over fear. Never too late to protect those who can no longer protect themselves. And if you're the one being hurt, you are not weak. You are not a burden. You are not too old to matter. You deserve safety, respect, dignity. We lost a son. We lost the illusion of a perfect family. We lost years of peace. But we didn't lose what mattered most, our lives, our dignity, and the light we still have for each other. In the small garden where the three of us once laughed together, my wife and I learned something profound. Love, when it's no longer blind, hurts, but it also liberates. I am Russell Brennan. This is my story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for not looking away. I sit here now 3 months after my son was taken away in handcuffs, and I think about all the grandpa stories my own father told me. Stories about honor, family, and courage. This isn't the kind of grandpa stories I ever wanted to tell my grandchildren, but it's a true story, and maybe that's what matters most. Don't be like me. Don't wait until bruises appear. Don't ignore the warnings. Don't let blood ties blind you to cruelty. I almost lost Diane because I hesitated because I wanted to believe my son was still the boy I raised. That hesitation nearly cost us everything. The lesson I learned, the one I carry every single day, is this. Love without accountability isn't love, it's permission. Real love demands courage. It demands that you protect the vulnerable even when it breaks your heart, even when the abuser is your own child. God gave us conscience for a reason. He gave us the strength to do what's right, not what's easy. And sometimes the hardest act of love is saying no more. These are the grandpa stories we need to share the true story that could save lives. This is my true story, raw, painful, and real. If it resonates with you, if you've faced something similar, or if you know someone who needs to hear this, please comment below. Share this video. Subscribe to our channel. Your voice could save a life, because silence protects the abuser, not the victim. And we deserve better than silence.